are men manly, or is it the weakness of men that we see today? And I was relating to DW that, we help a lot of people here at Fathers Anonymous and behind the scenes. And I see fathers that are going through struggles in court and their legal battles. They're having relationship issues, obviously. A lot more emotionally distraught and financially destitute from all the prior that I just mentioned. And I know myself. I've offered advice and tried to help people and try and get their legal case moving forward in a positive direction, and try and give them some personal advice and financial advice. And I don't see that a lot of times that advice is accepted. And for myself, I'm obviously older. I'm wondering if it's generational. I know I had another member here in Fathers Anonymous tell me that some of the advice I was giving, as far as like getting a second or a third job, and pulling those bootstraps on tight, or moving forward to try and you know take steps forward to make your life better in all those areas, that the younger men of today, just they're not going to do that. And I guess from an older guy's perspective, I'm trying to process that and try and understand why. Because if I don't understand why, then I can't give good advice to help them move forward. And there's no easy answers to the problems we have. We have legal issues, and it's my opinion that a lot of the men that I deal with, they don't have the skills to handle their own legal case and represent themselves in court. So I usually recommend an attorney, which isn't always a good thing either. There's bad attorneys and bad advice out there from attorneys too. But I just think a lot of guys don't have the skills to manage their own case and present that in court to a judge. And if they're having financial issues, well, if you can't borrow the money, or if you're not going to have parents help you, then the only answer is you've got to make that money, or go into debt, and that's going to be a terrible thing that's going to affect you down the road. And then the emotional advice. I'm reading a book now, Men Uncivilized, by Travis Bonner or something like that. And he's trying to do that himself, is to bring back the manliness in men and the strength in men, that inner strength that men, let's say my generation, had more of, or even my father, where he fought in wars and came back, and there was no emotional support or help. You had to fight through it yourself, and the old thing, just deal with it. So I guess that's kind of the topic that I brought up, was what what is happening with the younger men nowadays, that uh, maybe they are not willing to always embrace advice, or they don't know how to even take that step forward to make their own life better in all these areas that I just discussed. Are men weak? You're younger than I am. What do you
Hmm.
think?
Here, I was going to show that. Is that the book you were talking about there?
Yes, yes, thank you.
Here you go.
And
Well,
it is a good book, real easy to read too.
look at us being snazzy.
Yeah.
Um, so it's funny that you said that I was younger because I'm going to hit you with a younger person question. Um, which I mean, me saying it would make me seem old to the younger people that might listen. But did you ever play Mario on the regular NES?
No,
No?
I was so busy. I really didn't get into video games.
In that first world in Mario, it's the very beginning of the game. And if you've played the game and you've won it, like you've played it a lot, like you get the game. And there are some really hard levels in the regular Mario. It's funny because I couldn't play it today and win. Um, it's that hard. But people that had older brothers or friends that played the game and they kind of went through it and then they found out all the cheats. And so in that first underground world, there's a really easy cheat, and it allows you to basically bypass something, and then you get to skip into like levels 5, 6, and 7 or something like that. It's like, and these are not just like 3 or 4 maps later. Like it's got worlds. Mario has worlds, so for every world, it's got, however many levels in the world. So you're skipping through tons.
Yeah.
And in that tons, the people that beat the game, they had to get good at it. And whereas you are just trying to jump straight into the cheat code and you skip ahead to level 5, 6, or 7, whichever one you pick. And if you haven't played the game, you're just going to lose like instantly because you haven't developed the
Hmm.
skills to play the game. And I'm sure you see where I'm going with it.
Yeah.
I
Oh, yeah.
think I think a lot of people these days have been exposed to the cheat codes. And it's like, well, why would I do all of this? I'm just gonna go to this. And then when they get to this, they realize, oh, this is too hard. Why am I even gonna try? And so then they just don't play the game anymore. It's like you're just presented with these options and you sort of miss the whole point of everything. And I think the point of everything is it's not the destination, it's the journey, right? Because, you find all of these people that they get rich and then, like they win the lottery or whatever. And those people are the most likely to lose everything because they got the cheat and they weren't pursuing whatever it was that made them get better, you know? And I think our society has kind of turned into that as a giant metaphor. Like we've kind of jumped the worlds, we've gotten all the cheat codes, and we've just skipped straight to the destination. And we found that we're not happy, we're not successful, we're not able to withstand all the things that life throws at us. And you just you say, okay, well, if if I if I get to the end and there's nothing there, or I can't keep going, then I'm just not going to play the game. And so my answer is I think we as a society have stopped doing the things that strengthen us along the way so that when we get to those hard times, we don't have the wherewithal to withstand the trials. And I don't know that that's necessarily any one person's fault.
Mhm.
I think as a society, we've sort of harmed ourselves. Um, and it's easy to do. It's easy to do because you might, you want the best for everybody. And so because you had to struggle for something, you might not want your son or daughter to struggle as much. So you kind of give them a small little cheat code. And
Yeah.
eventually the small little cheat code is skipping them levels ahead. And now they can't now they can't beat any level. So I don't know. That's my thought. I don't know that, like I said, I think I hate to use this word because it's overused, but I do think it's a much more systemic issue than just their parents didn't raise them right. You know?
Yeah. I see the analogy that you're using, and it makes a lot of sense. Um, but I guess when we get to that 25-year-old, 30-year-old guy that we deal with that's going through a nasty divorce and he's got one or two kids, and he's faced with court and $50,000 in attorney fees and social worker fees, and he's broken and he, his car is broke down and he's living with his parents at 35 years old or whatever. And if they don't have those skill sets because they were doing the cheats through life, what's the answer to get them to be, successful again and whole again, emotionally, financially, relationships.
Yeah, that's the thing that I think people like. I think the both of us are problem solvers and we want to fix.
Yeah,
And too many people contributed to the decay of our society, and therefore there's no way that just one or two people can fix it. And that's really devastating for people like us that have maybe been through a thing or two, and you can't tell me I can't. Like I'm gonna dig out of anything you put me through. And unfortunately, it's like a brick wall. Um, and it has no feelings, remorse, or emotion. You're just gonna lose, and it's not gonna move.
yeah.
Um, I had another thought too about all of this. Like, it's a little bit ironic, though, I think, to be fair, and I mean no disrespect towards you, and obviously
Mhm.
none to myself, but I mean at the end of the day, we met what we perceived as a wall, and that's when we stopped. Like we both, I mean, because we both could. Well, you're aged out now, but um, you could have every day of your life spent every last dime you had fighting and fighting and fighting with no end in sight, but you could have, and I
Yeah.
could today. And so just to be fair, because like I don't want it to seem like if somebody's watching this and they
Mhm.
think, well, screw these guys. Like, no, no, like we get it because we got to the hard level too. And um sometimes if one of the things on your controller, to continue with the metaphor, if one of the buttons on your controller doesn't work, if it's not working right, well, you can't you can't complete the game. And
Yeah.
let's insert an attorney as one of the buttons, or a judge, or a guardian ad litem, custody evaluator, parenting time supervisor. Any one of those things, any one of those buttons could be broke in your situation, and I'm sorry, you can get through a few levels and you can get some small wins, but maybe you're not going to get what you want, and that's a hard truth that I guess I guess bringing our other thing that we were talking about into the conversation is that that's also another really challenging thing about all of this is that, sorry, not everybody's going to win, and you have to be prepared for that. And it can't just be you know, quit everything. It can't, you know?
Well, and I've seen a few guys that, well, I've seen it. Well, I'll go there first. I've seen a few guys that have just flat out quit. Just kind of walked away, give up, um, and they figure that's a journey that'll work for them. And well, that then you get into your kids think you abandoned them. Um, Eventually, the legal system's going to come after you with a ton of bricks, the child support system, or that what you may choose that I'm going to give up, but that may not stop the ex-wife and the other party from still filing court actions against you. They're going to continually push at you and devastate your life and ruin the relationship with your kids and destroy you financially. And I used to manage a company, and we get those child support orders served on the company to do income withholdings, and the employee just quit. And then I saw what they were doing. They were doing job jumping. They'd get served and quit, and serve and quit, move on. And but that's no way to live. And they never had a career and could never get ahead financially. And so yeah, we can just quit, but the demons eventually catch up to you, if not that demon just being life in general, that you never can get successful. I hate even using that word, but that's defined by whatever the individual wants it to be a productive citizen for yourself and society. But I know what you're talking about as far as quitting earlier. Yeah, we both got to a point in our cases where you could see the writing on the wall. You weren't going to go any further. So what are you going to continue to do? Just continue to fight in court and pay attorneys and pay more social workers to go in debt, or totally ruin yourself financially to absolutely get nothing further. So yeah, you can say, yeah, I quit. Custodial evaluator said you're not going to get custody, and you get the kids a certain amount of percent of the time, which the courts don't enforce. So, where do you go from there? But I do see comments on other web pages and Facebook pages, never give up, always keep fight, stay in the fight, keep going. But to what extent? Financial devastation to where your kids hate you, or you get thrown in jail, or it's easy to say don't stop fighting, but there are times where you can just see that maybe it's time I need to focus now on my own life.
Yeah, well, this is what they're this is here, just play this, it'll be fine.
There you go.
That's it. I just
Yeah,
want
life's a screwed up mess.
to yeah, I know we've talked about that too with the don't give up. And I'm really torn on that because, you know, I I am frustrated with a lot of the gatekeeping mentalities, notions, behaviors, slogans, credos that we all, either as men in general, but particularly in this whole family court awareness community have. I'm just kind of disgusted with the sort of it's like there's people don't think about the consequences of their statements. That the words that they say carry a different weight for a different person, and they mean something different for a different person. And maybe they mean something different than the other person that's saying the exact same words. And so, like, one guy might say, never give up. And he's talking about literally spend every last dime, sell your car, sell your house, get rid of your dog, live in a box until you win. And again, you might not, like, even if you do all those things, um, is that good? I don't think it is. I don't think it's healthy. Um, and I don't think it's setting that person up for success to be a good parent if things go their way. Like, okay, well, say you did win. Congratulations, you won 50-50. You don't have a house, you're in a shelter. What are you going to
Now
do?
what?
Right. And newsflash, you won't get 50-50 in that scenario. No judge is going to say, "Well, this guy doesn't even have a house. Let me give him 50% of the time." Right? It's going to be used against you. So you you have to take care of yourself. Um, and sometimes that means making that hard decision. Um, but then here we are in that conversation that we started with is, you know, is it giving up, or what do you call that at that point? Because it's like there's different levels. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, maybe use the word balance. There has to be a balance in there somewhere that you're spending a reasonable amount of money on your case, and but you have to educate yourself enough to know what's possible too. That I see some guys that I'm going to go for custody, or um, but then, they share what's going on, they share their background, they share maybe some of the mistakes they've made. And I'm just thinking in my head, you know, boy, the odds of you getting custody, uh, you know, I, I I don't have that confidence level to encourage you to go there. But there I guess there has to be a balance in, fighting for what you believe in, fighting for your case and your kids, and still being able to maintain your own life and the standard that you want to, and moving forward with your own future, whether your kids are there or not. But like you said, just to throw everything in that one pot and not win anything, or maybe like you say, you do win, but now what are you gonna do? You're in a shelter and you got custody of your kids, big deal. Now what are you gonna do?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. At what cost, right?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I don't know. I know we've had some conversations lately, with some of the people that have messaged the page, and um, I don't know. Some days it just really wears on you, like because we're here to be there for one another, and sometimes being there means being real, and being honest, and that's nobody likes hearing bad news, but it's even harder, I think, to give the bad news, you know,
Yeah.
because, a- a- we wouldn't be here if we didn't know the weight of the bad news. You know what I mean? So it's like
Mhm.
it's not like we don't understand. It's that we understand all too well, and now we know that someone else is going to live um, with the same weight that we do. And so I don't know. What are your
Well, kind of like you said, for me, it's been the last week's been real weighty. Um, there's been 3 or 4 people I've been helping. I've been up till 1:30 in the morning talking to some of these people, either on the phone or messenger. And some of them, actually all of them, their cases aren't good. And you want to offer hope, but I'm not. I will never offer anybody false hope. I won't do it. I tend to be a realist, and I'm more of a kind of factually based person, and so I just kind of lay it out there as compassionately as I can. But um, I don't know. It's been for me. It's been a tough week, and we've had. I know you had a little conversation with the same person that, let's face it, from time to time we deal with people that are right at the brink of calling it quits, and I don't know. It's just for me. It's been a week like that. It's just been a real weighty and challenging cases, and guys trying to represent themselves in court that are. I can see it. They're completely ill prepared. Totally. I mean, they don't even have anything documented, and some of them they're going to a custody battle in 2 weeks in court, and with no custody evaluation. It's like, oh, just completely ill prepared. And it's like, so you need to get a lawyer now. Need to get a continuance. You need to get that date pushed out, and this is what you need to do, and kind of lay it out there. And they're not taking that step forward. It's like you can't walk into a courtroom in 2 weeks, ill prepared, no attorney, no custody evaluation, and the other party's got they admit a high powered Barracuda attorney. They're going to eat you alive. Um, so I guess that's what brought this up to me as a topic to discuss, combined with this. And I'm going to use the word again, weak men. And that's not meant to disparage anyone. It's just a term that's being even tossed around in the media right now. Um, it's something I'm trying to reconcile is how to offer the right kind of advice to people, not give them false hope, try and give them some steps and paths that they can take if they choose to. But that's the big thing. They have to choose to. Um, I don't know. I'm in a lack of a better word, a state of confusion myself right now in how I can effectively help people and try and give them the encouragement to help themselves. I'll let you toss some things in and then, and I didn't want to bring this about me, but maybe I'll talk briefly say what I went through and what I had to deal with, but toss some input in here.
Yeah, well, it's funny. Once you said that, my thought left me. Um, let me see if I can pull it out. Yeah, so the thought I had was, um, I think people that sometimes would talk to us like either in our support groups or see like a video that we share will hear us saying like you need to get yourself an attorney and think, ah, these guys are pro attorney. And I just want to say I am very not pro attorney. But the thing that you just you really need to be a real you need to be really realistic with your expectations of yourself, what you can handle, and that's emotionally and mentally and even physically. And you need to meter your expectations of outcomes. And I think a lot of guys, think I'm a good dad. I'm a good dad. I always tell the truth and I have this and this and this. And so, yeah, she said this, but I'm going to go in. I'll just say, hey, I'm a good dad. I'm at this. I do that with the kid and blah, blah, blah. And bada bing, bada boom, it'll work out. No, it won't. 9 times out of 10, it won't. And so if you go into court unprepared, like what Zach's saying, you're not going to do well because the thing you have to understand about court, and this is true in family court and in criminal court, civil court, it's like it's more about the mechanisms of law than it is the law and justice itself. And so if you don't know how court procedures operate in your county, or just small words in statutes, what they mean to you might not be how they're defined legally. And you cannot just walk into a court and say, I'm a good dad. I take little Timmy to baseball every week. I'm in his Boy Scout troop. I'm one of the Boy Scout leaders. I'm there every single day. That's not enough because it's not about you. It's about the way that the laws and the mechanisms work. And you're just going to be in for a shock. And if you're not prepared, if you're not educated on the legalese, on the statutes, how they work, what they say and what they mean, which can be different, you're screwed. You're just screwed. And so it's not a get an attorney because we're pro attorney. It's if you don't understand any of that, like if you think you do, you probably don't. You better know that you know. But if you even remotely think, maybe I'm not too sure about that, you just got to get an attorney because there's no way that you can just become an attorney overnight and be prepared to go into court like 2 weeks from now. Not it's fine if that's all you have to do, right? If for literally 2 weeks all you do is study for all of this, maybe. You're still subject to broken controller buttons and hard levels. Like that's not changing. Excuse me. But um be realistic. You got a job probably. So now, okay, so now take away 40 hours out of that week. You're doing this. You're driving to work. You're driving from work. You got to make breakfast, dinner, whatever. There's all this time. So now, all this time you thought you had is now this small window of maybe 2 hours a day and maybe in between at work. if you're lucky. This you're just not prepared. You're not. And whether it's just getting some consultations or retaining someone, it's probably your best bet. Unfortunately. Now, could you win? Could you go pro se? Sure. And you could win. But like I said, I think when I hear you say get an attorney, like the gut instinct in me says, oh, that doesn't sound good. But it you have to understand to them, both the judge and both attorneys, that's their job, day in, day out. You're another case, you're another number, and at the end of the day, you mean probably nothing to them. This is your life, and it means everything to you. And that's a big gamble. That is a big gamble. So anyway, that I just wanted to get that off my chest because every
Yeah,
time you say get an attorney, the person in me, it just like it stings. But I also know it's true.
yeah. Well, and you add there too, then the dynamics in the courtroom. If you're going up against a real attorney, the personalities involved. Um, these attorneys argue cases enough. They know what's possible before that judge, what that judge is probably going to rule before they even walk in the courtroom. Um, and I know you know this. I'm former law enforcement, and we were trained how to testify in court, and I've been in court a lot, and I feel very comfortable in a courtroom, and not necessarily family court, but and I'm fairly good at articulating legal information in court and all that. But when it came down to family court, I would never, ever think of representing myself pro se. And I know there's been a few guys that have done it successfully, but um, well, I'll just bring it up too. We know one guy, and I'm not diminishing him in any form. It's just a good example. He did pro se right. He spent hours and days and weeks and months learning the law and going to law libraries. And he went and sat in courtrooms in the very courtroom that he'd be in down the road to watch the attorneys, watch the judge. So he learned the law. He learned court decisions and rulings. He went to courtrooms and learned how to properly present himself and how to talk and the entire, let's say, dance in the courtroom, and filed all the right papers, and was very articulate about everything. And then it came to his day in court. As I recall, he missed the court time by a couple hours and lost by default. And so it was a mistake, and that mistake cost that individual, and they're going to have to start all over again. But I'd rather have an attorney there that would deal with all the issues that had to be dealt with, and if there was a screw up, I got somebody to put my hands around their neck. you know but I didn't fare very well in court. My attorney even said that later in the case, and after decisions were made, he says, we're not doing very well for you, are we? And he was actually a friend of mine. But I look back and I saw that I don't think there's ever false hope, but I saw him as a way to minimize my damages. And that's how I'm explaining it now to guys. That attorney is there to help you with your case and hopefully get you a positive outcome. I don't try and even use the word win. That attorney is there to try and manage the case and minimize your damages. And there's a lot of damages that can be caused to an individual, personally and financially. And that's looking back, that attorney that I had, he did that. He minimized my damages. But for myself, as confident as I felt in the courtroom, I wouldn't have done it myself. I even had him in my child support hearings to, again, minimize my damages.
Yeah, well, that's probably another topic worth discussing is, and I think we've talked about it before too, but just like you when we say get an attorney, you need an attorney that will minimize your damages,
Yeah.
not one that's gonna listen to you talk about your feelings and be your counselor. All that is running up the clock. And in case you didn't know, they get paid by the hour. So you need one that's no nonsense and one that one that might even kind of piss you off, honestly. They're not there to be your friend. They're there to win. Um, if you have one that's direct like that and is saying all of these tactics that, obviously I'm not going to say support someone that's blatantly lying or wants to, you know, convince you to do that, but they're trying to win. And listen, despite how you can't afford to lose, let's just say that. You cannot afford to lose. Um, let's see. Well, we actually have a couple more of our volunteers that are going to hop on. If that's good with you, Zach,
Yeah, sure.
we can hit them with your first question.
The manliness and weakness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we were chatting about something that Zach here brought up, so I'll let him posit the question to you guys since we already talked each other's faces off.
Well, I guess the general topic here is men in general are the younger men of today, and we can say 20, 25, 28, even up to 35-year olds, whatever, uh, going through the trials and tribulations that we all are in family court. Are they weak compared to maybe my generation? And I don't consider myself a strong guy, but where we were going with this discussion was, um, DW and myself and others, we offered, men and dads come to us with problems that they're facing in family court and their custody battles and with their children and so on. And we try and offer them advice, as far as how to manage their case, handle their case, maybe how to deal with finances, how to pay for their attorney, all the various avenues of advice that we give. And it seems like a lot of the younger ones, they're stuck. They either don't embrace that advice, they're not willing to do the hard work it may take to step forward. Financial is just for an example. They're already financially devastated. They need an attorney. They don't have the money to pay for an attorney. Maybe they're living at home with their parents, and they're not willing to get a job at all. Or like me, the height of my case and troubles, I had three jobs. I was literally sleeping 3.5 hours a day, um, to just financially be able to support myself and my kids and the legal battle and all that. So I guess the umbrella question here is: are men today weaker? And what do we do about it?
mean, like when I went through mine, I was running a project when mine started, and I was driving 120 miles each way every day, and building a brand new hospital, and it destroyed me. And my lawyer, I got the best lawyer I could find, and their recommendation was to, just, yeah, you got to keep working. I'm like, well, I was like, Bill, if I can't handle this project and this going on, I said, they'll lay me off. Been with them long enough. It's like, I just don't know when the next project will be. And she's like, no, 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 you want to be working. You want to be working. And I don't know that really ended up being true. Because by the time I ended up, with equal custody, but it was based on my work schedule. Uh, my ex-wife claimed to be that she all she was doing was volunteer work, and claimed she quit a full-time teaching job a week before filing for divorce so she could say that she was a stay-at-home mom. And through the first 2 years of our divorce, she just said that she was volunteering, and it wasn't until got all the way through a custody investigation, and that was where we ended up with equal. It was supposed to be equal time, but the most I could get was every Thursday through Sunday because of my work schedule. And but it took everything I made during those 2 years just went straight into the battle. I spent $25,000 on a custody investigation. I mean, just, insane amounts that not, they shouldn't have to, it shouldn't have had to been spent.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's the whole system needs fixing, at least in my view.
When I think to Zach's point, I mean, I think the four of us on this, we did do a lot of the work and we did do whatever it took. Um, yourself included, Obi included, but it seems like what we see from our perspective, at least as like advocates or volunteers, we're seeing less people stick around and fight, for better or worse, you know? Are you seeing that? I know you're kind of in a more not
Well,
as big of an area.
I mean, after COVID up here, when they shut down all the parenting time people and parenting time supervisors, and they were just saying, well, you're getting your parenting time over Zoom instead. I instead got registered through the court, become a parenting time supervisor, and every case that I was involved in ended up with equal time because I gave them that option during their supervised parenting time to work out an equal schedule. And I made some enemies. The judge ended up getting me back, I guess through my court case um after that. But the people that I worked with, they ended up with equal time coming out of supervised parenting time. But I mean, I was only one person, so I think that was a total of 6 cases during COVID. But that's under Minnesota law, anyone that's over 18 could be, and was recognized by the court, could be a parenting time supervisor. So I didn't need anything other than the availability and the willingness to do it. Um, so I don't know.
I think I think there's probably a good takeaway there that when you find yourself in these battles, you need to be flexible. You need to be someone that can do whatever.
Yeah,
Kind of like what
but
Peter's saying.
but also, I mean, if I wouldn't have been there for them, they would have been stuck with was a couple hours a week on Zoom.
Right.
And I don't know. The first two cases were people I knew, and the other ones were not, or that I didn't know necessarily well, I guess. And I am from northern Minnesota, so it isn't high density population up here.
Well, Obi, what do you think? Have you been seeing that trend?
I think I think with, if I'm following correctly, I can chime in on this. I don't know, but so what I see is a lot of what I thought that I'd seen whenever I started my case, and that it was, 2018 whenever I filed for divorce, and really believed that we had laws that protected our rights and gave us equal say and equal time with the kids. Um, People hear joint custody and they think that that benefits them, when the reality is that it's nothing more than a here, I'm going to give you something on paper to get you to shut up and go away. And so I think that with reference to younger generation, whenever they first start going through a divorce, they think that there's laws in play that protect them. The reality is that there isn't. And so whenever they turn to people like us who are going down that road, they think that we're old, we're seasoned, and that we just simply don't know what we're talking about. And they want to have faith in the government and the system, when the system is there to do nothing but hurt them and hurt their kids.
And make the most money they can out of it,
Absolutely.
as is showing in with the more light that's being shined on this Title 4D money and how it actually works. Um, I mean, just the difference, like Texas's law being written so the parenting time order will maximize the Title 4D reimbursement and things like that. I hadn't found any of that in Minnesota law, but it's all written. I mean, everything acts that way. So, I
Right.
mean, the legislative intent is there, but it's not in black and white like the Texas code. And that's pretty twisted, but makes sense. It's the fastest way to grow government is to get it more money, right?
DW, it's a little off topic, but do you mind if we discuss that a second?
Yeah. I don't,
Um,
this is all of our group.
well, there's two things that I've kind of seen as a firestorm across the internet. The first one happened maybe 6 weeks ago, where a rumor started um, back in DC that President Trump was going to change the law where men could deduct their child support payments. And even Mark Ludwig got ahead of that and said, no, this is not happening. And but that spread like a wildfire across the country, and it was completely untrue. And now, and I know Mark Ludwig's heavily involved in this, and he's posted about it, about Title 4D reform, that Doge and all that is looking into it. Now I'm seeing a firestorm across the internet that, oh, great, it's going to basically is going to resolve all our problems.
No, I don't think it will,
I
but
don't.
it'll give a reason for a state to realistically look at something other than what they've been doing. Because if they're automatically getting paid this extra amount of money for these child support collections, if that's gone and only on used on the cases that it was originally designed for, the welfare cases on welfare or double welfare even, the the ones that the statistics on like California that came out that they don't even collect those. They don't even try to enforce those cases because there's no, they don't, those are, it's 95% of the arrears money is those cases that were supposed to be dealt with by the Title 4D money, and they're still in arrears now.
Yeah.
The
Well,
money just skipped them.
yeah, I guess what I'm saying is, there's no guarantee that Title 4D is going to be dropped. But let's assume it is. I guess what I'm seeing across the country, going through all the things I'm seeing, is that people think it's going to do away with child support. It's going to resolve their custodial issues. Basically, it's going to be a fix-all for family court. And I think,
No. Well, I
uh,
don't. I
no,
disagree
I'm
there.
not saying, I'm not saying you're saying that. I'm seeing a lot of people across the country that they just think that whatever Doge is going to do there is going to resolve all our issues. And let's assume that they do away with Title 4D is the child support aspect of it. It's going to take away the incentives from the federal government for the state to collect it. But
Yep.
all I'm saying is let's have a little reality here. If Title 4D went away, if we actually sincerely think that the states themselves are not going to go after us for non-payment of child support, and I just don't see that happening. I think there's still
Nope.
going to be child
Well,
support boards. You just won't have the
but
incentive.
then they aren't given the incentive to set these high and unrealistic orders. I mean, when you're setting a $1,000 child support payment for someone making 50,000 a year, it's not realistic.
Yeah,
Most likely both of the parents were working. That's that's what I went through.
yeah. No, and I see
Um,
what you're saying, but
I mean, my ex-wife quit her full-time teaching job a week before filing so she could say she was a stay-at-home mom,
mhm.
and the court just went along with it.
But it's like I'll just speak for where I'm at in Oregon. Our child support laws are state laws,
Yeah.
and Title 4D and Doge, if they do that, that would take away the incentives from the federal government. But
Hmm.
you're still going to have to actually change the state laws
Yeah,
within each state.
but the
And
state's going to be more willing to change those laws
I, I hear,
if they don't have a funnel of money dumped on them.
Well,
yeah,
I'm certainly not convinced that a state like Minnesota, state like California, and to be honest with you, a state like Texas, because I'm in Texas, and I thought when I moved out here that it's the land of the free. Brother, they got their own regulations here too. They got their own scams. They just paint it different. You know,
Hmm.
I'm not convinced, and I'm probably a little too black pilled. So full disclosure, I'm kind of a pessimist. I'm sorry, everybody. Don't listen to me. Cover your ears the next 2 minutes. But I'm not convinced that they won't just find another way to incentivize it or another excuse because like in all of these things, there are all of these consequences. So like in some states and Zach and I have talked to a couple people that highly debate this, but I've been in this long enough to know and see and hear. I'm not just talking to two people. Um, the states, some of the states that have had some of those 50-50 laws granted, that it the way that they allowed the the bill to be written, they stripped it down and basically have said a rebuttable presumption, blah, blah, blah. And in the wording, it's like, so long as there aren't any accusations of abuse or blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay, well, you just opened the door wide open for them. So now in these states where they got 50-50, now all of a sudden you see these like allegations spike. It's like, oh, I wonder why that's
Hmm.
happening. It's because of this
Hmm.
unintended consequence. And they just kicked the can down the road and now we're calling it a different can, but it's still the same can. And so some they've unintentionally created another problem and now the same problem exists. You know what I mean? And so I'm not convinced that the states won't just turn around and say, well, we're gonna find our own way because they're always gonna get theirs, right? They're like making these programs and people are going on WIC and EBT and healthcare. They're gonna get theirs back one way or another. That's my black pilled thinking. I'll shut up.
My ex-wife, she was getting, sooner care on the kids, sooner care on her, um, about $900 a month in food stamps, drawing little over 900 a month from me, on top of what she was making as a manager where she was working. And you know, I'm not sure about the what you're talking about, Zach, but I know I've heard from multiple sources that Trump wants to give the non-custodial parent the right to claim children on or on their taxes if they're paying child support. So if we put that into a ballpark figure, you get what, 35, 6 grand for earned income credit, on top of 900 a month in food, or yeah, right at 900 a month in food stamps, free medical, and that's not counting the child support that the custodial parent is getting. That's just it's absurd with that many incentives to throw a non-custodial parent under the bus and take away and deprive them of their freedom. How they get away with it is beyond me. I don't even know how they can fund Sooner Care, food stamps. I don't know how they do it.
Have you ever noticed that our national debt never seems to go down?
I wonder why.
DW, to spin off what you were talking about, that's where I'm black pilled too. Um, I'll just speak for Oregon. Do away with Title 4D. Go ahead. I don't see any change here. Your first of all, your court orders aren't going to change. The child support collection is not going to change. The unfairness of family court won't change. And in this highly liberal state with a supermajority Democrat control in both houses, we can't even get. In 2019, they passed a 50-50 parenting time law here that has been, in my opinion, totally ineffective. There's a bill right now that's been heard that's making another little tweak to that I doubt it'll pass, but even if it does, it again will not fix anything. And I'm all for 50-50 shared parenting and all the people that are behind it, but I'm watching what's happening around the country, and you can pass all the 50-50 shared parenting laws you want to. If you don't change one, and I've got a whole list of things that I think need to be fixed, but if you don't change one other thing in the courtroom, and that's the laws and rules of evidence, what you said is my viewpoint, is you're just going, you need to break that presumption of 50-50, and the way you're going to do it is with false reports, false allegations, restraining orders, doing whatever you can to make dad look bad. This case, we're talking dads. So if you don't change the rules of evidence to at least make it a fair fight in the courtroom, you can pass every 50-50 shared parenting law you want, and it's not going to affect the masses in a beneficial way.
Well, and that's where I've stood by for a very long time. We have people that want to make changes in certain states, Oklahoma, Texas, Kansas, so on and so forth. And everybody's targeted at a state level. And it's my belief that we really need something at a federal level to regulate what the states are allowed to do. We have so many laws at a federal level that gives us rights and protects us from law enforcement and some of the things that would go on in court if we didn't have that federal protection. And so I think that our federal lawmakers have really dropped the ball by leaving it up to the state. I'm a firm believer that the feds have got to step in and do something about the family court system, or we'll just keep running around in circles. And I hate to say it, but that's the way that it'll be.
Yeah, oh man, there's a lot of ways to go with this conversation.
Yeah.
I want to throw something up on the screen. Not that anyone will maybe watch this far, but if you are, Zach hit on something about the standard of proof, and I think I'm torn on the whole state and federal thing, but I if we have laws, they should be enforced. We don't need to make new laws or change. In just enforce the ones that exist to start with. But let me throw this up on the screen. So when you go to court, there are different legal standards of proof. when you get stopped, like say, you run a stop sign, there's reasonable suspicion. But that's not enough. Reasonable suspicion isn't enough to take you to jail over. That's where probable cause comes in. Now, once you go into family court, you can see on the screen the next step up is preponderance of evidence. Now that could mean a lot of different things. And in most of our cases, and most of what we've seen in advocacy, preponderance could simply just be a bunch of screenshots that are taken out of context, but they don't mean anything at all. I think and correct me if I'm wrong, Zach, uh, what you're saying the evidentiary standard should be changed to is clear and convincing evidence, which is in many civil cases.
Actually, and that's where some are advocating changing it. I say it needs to go all the way to beyond reasonable doubt. If you're accused of stealing a hammer out of Home Depot, and you go to court, you're going to be judged beyond a reasonable doubt. There's an odds you might get a fine. You probably wouldn't go to jail at all. Not a whole lot of effect on your life, but you get judged on beyond a reasonable doubt. But you walk into family court where you could be spending 20, 50, $100,000, devastate your life, have to lose your home, lose your children for years, decades, or for your entire life, fracture that relationship with them, and they're not going to accept evidence that gets you to beyond a reasonable doubt you are a good man, beyond a reasonable doubt those allegations made by your ex-wife are either accurate or not. The devastating effects in family court, and we're down there at just a preponderance of the evidence or less. Right now, mere allegations, false, lies, false reports. People come in and testify against you that never even met you. It's like I said, we can change the laws to 50-50 custody, 50-50 shared parenting, and if you don't change the rules of evidence, it's meaningless. And beyond reasonable doubt in criminal court, even that's flawed. I mean, not to get too much on a tangent, but even in a criminal trial, the attorneys and judge decide what evidence the jury is going to hear. So there's evidence, even in the best of scenarios, at the highest evidentiary standards, that the jury will never even hear, which could make a difference also. But at least that would, in family court, give us a fighting chance. Then no one's just going to come in and say you're a sex abuser without being able to prove that you are, in fact, a sex abuser.
Yeah,
there's no protection. There's no protections for defamation or hearsay,
Exactly.
defamation or libel in it, because
right.
it's believed that the party is telling their truth, no matter what.
Well,
No matter how
and to your point, once they put it out there, it's out there, and now you're on the defense, right? They made the affirmative argument, and now you're in the defense, and that's where I agree with Obi, where it's like, okay, well, you congratulations, you said words, but that doesn't mean anything, and if the court is allowing it, if they're not holding these statutory standards, and if we're not upholding what should be the standards for evidence, then they should be held that you should be able to use federal law to hold your state accountable. If your state, like in my case, I had an instance where the referee wasn't even following the statute. Like the judge was not following the state law. Uh, there should be relief beyond asking for recusal, because it affected me. It affected my family. There's no recourse for that. But the judge should be, I mean, of all people, the judge should be held accountable, right? And who's going to do it? Well, it's certainly not the court that you're dealing with, like so like I said, to Obi's point, I mean, that's where I believe the federal there should be easy mechanisms to course correct the state courts. But I mean, good luck. Good luck getting an attorney to take that on, and certainly good luck going pro se.
Well, just real quick, I'll toss something in there, and I don't remember exactly the clause involved, but the Supreme Court a number of years ago ruled that all parents, no matter what your status is, uh, have certain legal rights to their children, access, love and affection, all that. So there's been actually a Supreme Court decision made on that. Yet a lot of family courts don't follow it, and there's been family court judges that even say that that Supreme Court decision has no bearing in family court. That's basically, those judges are just flipping off the Supreme Court of the United States.
Well, see, and that's where I'm in belief if the federal government was to step in and do a universal law that would apply to every state would be beneficial for the kids. We're all up there in age, and we've learned to deal with it. But our kids at some point may be faced with this. And so I have very minimum faith in the state of Oklahoma for change here. We've had a couple bills that they got heard, they got shot down. Our leaders here in Oklahoma cared more about the effects that it had on the judges than the effects that it had on the kids. We could spit out numbers all day long, but for whatever reason, the family courts, they don't care. Whether it be about money, whether it be a power trip, or whatever the case may be, they don't seem to care. And I've even tried that route in my own personal case of going in with factual numbers of how it affects kids. And the judge laughed me out of the courtroom. Um, you know, and what do? Your hands are tied because you don't have, you can't just sit there and say, well, under U.S. Code 5631-10B, you can't do this. You don't have no protection when it comes to your children. None.
Yeah, there's a video that I cite often, and it's of Molly Olson, and she's in a this like committee hearing, and um, I can't remember exactly the context. It's been a while since I've seen it, but she's alluding to the same thing that you guys are talking about. I believe it's the 14th Amendment, actually, is what they used, just to say that a parent has an inalienable right to raise their kids, to make decisions concerning care, consideration, custody, and control of their kids. I think I'm not a law scholar, but so when she said, well, what about these parents' constitutional rights? And they flat out said to her, that doesn't apply here. And it's like, there is no more supreme document that applies to everyone that's an American citizen than the Bill of Rights. There is nothing, there is nothing that takes precedence over that. And yet we've allowed these people to put on costumes and get these law degrees and tell us otherwise. And they control the outcomes of our family, of our legacy and generations. And they could give a crap less about if you think that you have a constitutional right to be a parent. And it's like, that's literally the basis of all the laws of the land. and they will tell you flat to your face that that doesn't apply here. They told Molly Olson, who's somewhat of an expert in our little arena, like, doesn't apply here.
My judge cited it in my case, said it in my case too. And my judge is the head judge for the district up here, not just a family law judge. She's
Sure.
the head district court judge.
I'm gonna reel it in before I say some not kind things.
Oh, come on.
Well, I'm recording this. I'm hoping we can share this on the page. I'm not gonna
You can always edit it out.
get angry tonight. I'm not gonna get angry. I'm choosing not to be angry. I've had a couple rough days. Seeing here, let's make us all depressed. How about that? Um, seeing memories of my kids smiling is one of the most painful things that I can experience in my life. So like I was yesterday, I saw videos of my kids from 7 years ago. And if they were sad, happy, or if they were sad, upset, angry, whatever, it wouldn't hurt as much as seeing their smiles. So,
I I guess I'm fortunate I get to see my kids there in the summertime. But you know, I'm constantly seeing memories over the last 4 or 5 years since I reinstated my visitation with my kids. I completely get what you're saying. Google Photos is the worst fucking thing ever invented because it'll sit there and ring your phone and tell you, look at these memories, and you can't help but look. And yeah, trust me, I get what you're saying, man. Um, you know, and I don't know. I deal with my own stuff. I've got a daughter that calls me here and there. And when she calls, normally she's crying, Daddy, I want to come home. Come get me. And I have to be the one to tell her, I can't just come get you. Unless your mom's going to let you come, it would do me no good to show up. And somehow it always gets twisted that I'm the bad guy because I won't come pick her up and give her what she wants. But I don't think that she really understands that I don't have the power because the state has said I don't have that right.
like I said, these people in robes, they get to tell us they never they weren't there for their first steps. They don't know their first words. They have no idea what your kid's favorite color is, what their favorite foods are, what their favorite blanket is. They don't know what your kids smell like, the exact color of their eyes. That they don't know anything about you or your kids, just words on paper that they were presented with, and yet somehow they get to decide what the best interest is for you, your family, your kids, and honestly, their kids, and then their kids, because all of this stuff, it's just cyclical. So, yeah,
We're not live, are we?
we're not live, but hang on just a second. Uh, I am going to go ahead and pause the recording since we've been going for a while. I figure most people won't watch it this far, but if you did, good for you. Come join one of our support group meetings. We do them every month. And let's see, this month is March. Let's see, what's today? Sunday? I imagine next month's support group meeting will be somewhere between a Sunday and a Tuesday next month. So if this is posted soon, be on the lookout for April 25, sometime in the middle of the month, one of those days. Peace.